Hi, thanks for joining me and welcome to my YouTube channel. It's January 2021 and it's now been 3 years since I stepped back on the skateboard. I decided I wanted to spend a moment just looking back at when I started, what my frame of mind was back then, how that might have changed now, how it's evolved into where I'm at right now. If you take a look at my very first video on the channel, that is my introduction to starting to skate again. I was 39 years old, I hadn't skated for more than 20 years and I was really mainly just looking for some exercise. Didn't know what to do. I wasn't too excited about cycling. I'd done that a lot in the past but just really wasn't so excited about it anymore as I used to be. I really couldn't face the idea of going to a gym. It's just not my kind of thing. But I needed something to get my legs moving and just my body moving in general as I approached middle age. I was beginning to feel my legs were really not good, aching too much in the mornings. I wasn't doing anything physical at all, to be honest, apart from going for walks in the park, and that's just not enough. So I wanted to do something that was going to really kind of push me a bit and get my muscles working and get me fit, because I was starting to pile on the pounds. And after quite some thought, skateboarding was really the only thing that stuck in my mind. I lived near a skate park. I lived near a few skate parks actually, and I'd often thought I should just go along there and see if I could still do what I used to be able to do. So one January day 3 years ago, I decided to go to one of those local parks and take an old board I had and see what I could do. This particular park was Concrete Bowls, and I hadn't stepped on transition in more than 20 something years. I'd been rolling around a little bit on the street, just on the flat, cruising around, but I hadn't skated a transition for so long. Initially my balance was awful, like dead awful, and I spent about an hour just rolling around trying to get my balance back, and I really didn't envisage having to do that. I thought that because I could roll around on the flat okay, that the transition would feel okay as well. But no, I really did have to spend about an hour reacclimatizing to the feel of a transition. And it was quite a poignant moment for me because it made me feel like I had never skated before. So I remember what it feels like now to not have any balance on a transition and to not feel correct weight distribution, not really know how to conduct myself to balance properly rolling on a transition. So it really stuck in my mind as, you know, something that I'd never thought that I would have to learn all over again. But I got over it in a pretty short time, and the video that you see on my channel as my first video was just after a little bit of time getting used to the feel of the transition. Dropping in, I didn't have a problem. Dropped in, rolled straight away. Didn't have a problem trying to turn into an axle stall. I kind of overshot a little bit every time, as you see in the video, but didn't really have any problems doing that, and that felt to me very natural, a bit like riding a bike or, you know, a cat landing on its feet, those kind of things, you know, that just stay with you. So yeah, I didn't have any kind of first time concerns about dropping into something or doing an axle stall or a rock fakie, any of those sort of things. They felt very natural to me, which I was glad. It was just the balance that was totally gone, and took a little bit to get back. Some things that stuck in my mind that I do remember quite vividly are the board I had. Now I think I bought that board around maybe 1999, 2000 I think, and I bought it from a London skate shop and literally just to cruise on, you know, cruise around. Now I don't remember looking particularly hard in the shop at what there was available. I don't remember there being cruiser boards available. I don't even remember longboards even. So I went into the skate shop. I remember asking the guy in the skate shop, I need a board, I haven't skated for years, and they've completely changed since I skated. Bear in mind, what I consider sort of my heyday of skating was from kind of like 1988, 89, 90, 91, 92. And then perhaps towards like 93, 94, 95, it was phasing out a bit. I was losing interest, and the skate video that I actually put up on my YouTube channel from around 94, 95 was probably one of the last times that I was actually skating. Probably that was the last summer that I actually skated, because that was when me and my friends that were in the video, we were leaving school and going off in different directions, different colleges, and we kind of stopped seeing each other and stopped skating. We went off in different directions and started new lives at college, and that is pretty much when I stopped skating. So really my kind of prime time was late 80s, early 90s, and the boards that were around at the time, they moved from shaped boards into what now are pretty much referred to as football shaped decks, very much more oval than the modern popsicle decks. I remember the last board that I had, which is what I'm skating in that video, was a real Salman Agar slick, the one where he's dressed up as a fairy on the bottom. The original shape of that was a football shape, and you know, it was the time of tiny wheels, huge baggy jeans, and football shaped decks, and I really didn't like that fashion, that vibe. And it was when popsicles were first coming out, and so I bought that deck in a sale that was going cheap because it was considered old school shape. It was a football shaped deck, and the shop actually offered to cut it down for me into the shape of a popsicle board. So they laid a popsicle deck on top of that football shaped deck and cut it out with a jigsaw so that it was actually a popsicle shaped deck, more so than what it was previously. And so, you know, they offered to do that for me for free, so I said, yeah, sure, why not? And so that was probably my first popsicle deck. Thinking back, I remember these things. I had no idea about deck width or truck width. When I was a kid, you know, everything was like 10 inches wide, and everybody just bought a deck, as far as I remember. You know, I was quite young, but as far as I remember, everybody just bought a deck, and they had the same trucks and wheels widths, and they just fitted. And I can only think they must have been like 169s. I always skated indies when I was a kid, independent trucks, apart from some cheaper trackers that I had earlier than that, and some that were called Invaders actually before that. They were all 4 10-inch width boards, and we used to just buy a deck, and you know, your trucks and wheels just fitted from the previous one. And I didn't have much comprehension of deck widths. So when I bought this new one in like 99, 2000, I just asked the guy in the shop, I need a setup, what shall I get? And he literally just pulled stuff off the shelf and said, get this. And that's what I bought. Didn't even think about the shape. And so when I started skating now 3 years ago, I remember talking to somebody online, and they said to me, have you got a board? And I said, yeah, I've got one that I've had for almost probably 15 or more years. And he said, you know, what was it? Turned out to be an early PAL mini logo deck. And he said, what size is it? And I said, I didn't know. I got a tape measure out and I measured it, and it was a 775 width. And he laughed and said, my God, that's really skinny. And looking at it at the time, I thought, yeah, it was pretty skinny. And looking at it now, it's super skinny. But back at the time that I bought it, that was the boom of like super skinny decks, and I think everybody was skating 775s. So that was the time that I'd bought that board. So riding it again 3 years ago, I immediately thought it felt a bit weird. It obviously didn't feel too bad to me for just cruising around, and I didn't really pay too much attention to what it was I was riding. It was, you know, I spent a fair bit of money on it. It was a mini logo deck, Adventure trucks, and I can't even remember what wheels they were. I think I was skating some old school Pal Peralta wheels that I had left over from the 90s, and there were some Birdhouse bearings. So anyway, yeah, this deck I took to the skate park 3 years ago, started skating it, and very quickly felt that it wasn't that solid and that I needed something a bit wider, a bit firmer. So you'll see in maybe my second or third video, I actually bought a Pal Peralta flight deck, one of the very first generation flight decks, Charlie Blair model. That's the 243 shape if you really want to know the details. But there's a video on one of my early videos that showing my new deck. So yeah, there's some things that kind of stuck out to me since then that have become apparent. Things like the board shape, wheel sizes, wheel compounds and hardness, bearings, and how different bearings feel, and what I've ended up with through lots of trial and error. Same with wheels. You know, I've bought so many sets of bearings and so many sets of wheels, trying things out to find what I've ultimately settled on now. And I've just got so many now through trial and error. Some are old school ones that I bought because that's what I liked at the time, and I was skating 90s wheels for a while because that's what I liked at the time, and it took some time to get used to newer, harder wheels. That's what I'm on now. But it's funny that looking back and remembering not knowing or not having any comprehension of those things, when usually I'm quite a geek about this sort of thing, and I have turned into that about skateboarding now, but usually I do a lot of research about stuff and I really try hard to find out all the information because I just have to know. For a job I'm an engineer, and it's kind of, I think it's the engineer in me where I need to know the micro details about things in order to make a fair assessment about what I'm going to do. So, you know, that gets in my head and a bit OCD. I just get a bit uber technical about everything, and I thought it was slightly bizarre that I hadn't been that way about getting back into skateboarding. The fact that I just picked up my board and just began to ride it, which I think is kind of cool because that's the purest form of enjoyment, is literally picking up a board and riding it and not really caring about anything else around it. Looking back now at my 3 years ago experience, I was doing it for the fun of it and a bit of exercise. I had no idea what it was going to turn into. I had no idea really that I was going to turn into a YouTuber in the sense of filming all my skating, but I was talking about wanting to document my skate progression and really diarise what was going on and whether I was going to actually get any good at skating, whether I was going to enjoy it. It turns out that I kept up with the filming. I've had dips here and there where I've not been able to film for a bit of time, but I actually ended up filming so much that I created a huge backlog for myself with editing, which I still haven't fully recovered from. So right now I think I'm up to March 2020. So I've got a fair bit of catching up to do, but actually there's quite a few gaps in time because of the COVID lockdowns. So I think I should be able to catch up with that fairly quickly. But I'm really glad that I did start YouTubing because I absolutely can see my progression, and you know, I can look back and know exactly how I was skating. I wouldn't remember half the stuff about my skating if I hadn't filmed it and put it on my YouTube channel to look back on. And so the ultimate goal for this channel was to be able to look back, perhaps when I'm much, much older, and remember the progression, remember the fun I had, the people I met, all of those things. And so it's absolutely working. So if anybody's thinking about YouTubing their skating experience and progression, I would say go for it. I don't think you need to get kind of hung up in that kind of YouTubing situation where you're desperate to get subscribers and likes and numbers of views to eventually maybe get monetized and then get paid to put your videos up. I mean, that's kind of like maybe a nice eventuality one day, that perhaps you could earn some money from the videos that you're putting up, but really the amount of money that you're going to earn from putting up your own personal skateboarding videos is not going to be that much, to be honest, for the average user. Now maybe if you're really, really good at video production and you're really, really good at skating and really, really good at presenting to camera, all of those things make a perfect formula that turn you into, you know, a huge channel like Braille, for example, you know. But unless you're getting huge like that, you're not really going to earn much money from it. So I don't think people should go out there trying to make skateboarding channels specifically to earn money, because I think you'll be sorely disappointed. That's my view on it anyway. You may disagree, but to me, I think if you're going to do it, diarise it and have fun with it. Do what you want with it, of course, absolutely do what you want with it. But I would say the path that I've gone down, it makes great sense to me, and I'm glad I did what I did. So as I've said before, I think my progression has actually come a long way in those 3 years. And really, from having never really ridden a bowl before, bowl skating has now become my number one thing. Most fun I have ever had on a skateboard is skating bowls. I've started skating vert ramps now, which I never thought that I would be doing that, but at the same time I thought I have to do it before I'm too old. It's a bucket list thing. When I was a kid, we used to go to a skate park on the south coast of the UK called Southsea, which is a legendary old skate park, and it has one of the biggest vert ramps in the country. I think it's massive. I think it might be 14 feet, but it's huge, and I always looked at that and thought one day maybe I'll be able to skate that. I would love to, but I'm definitely afraid of heights, like really afraid of heights, and I don't even know how that started. I never used to be, but these days I'm really afraid of heights, and I thought skating vert is going to be pretty prohibited to me because of that. But I've made myself do it partly to conquer the fear of heights, but also because it's a bucket list thing for me. I have to skate vert ramps. I just have to, because if I don't, I'd never forgive myself if I got too old that I couldn't. So I started skating vert ramps. I'm really enjoying it. It's a very slow process in learning, so I can't really do anything on it. But so far I've felt like getting used to dropping in and kick turning and slash grinding is enough so far, because you know, it hasn't been that long. But yeah, I progressed way beyond what I thought I could. I'm just so much of a better skater than I ever was as a teenager. I didn't even look to progress as a teenager. We were quite a small group. We just kind of mooched around and did what we could and didn't really try hard to progress. It just fizzled out. Whereas now I feel like there's so much to learn, so much I want to learn. I've got a great bunch of friends that I met through skating just in the last 3 years. So it's really become a huge part of my life, and I'm so glad that I started it. So that's my reflection on the last 3 years of skating, and remembering some things that I didn't think would even factor in my mind. So I just want to say a huge thank you to everybody who's watched the videos, commented, liked, whatever. Any interaction at all has been much appreciated, and I've learnt an awful lot. Really enjoyed it, and hopefully you'll be there with me for the year ahead and everything that comes with it. So yep, thanks again, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon. Cheers.